Now let's work on another example. So let's call this A, B, C, D, and E. Now we're given that AB is parallel to DE. And we're also given that segment BD bisects segment AE. So with this information, prove that segment AB is congruent to segment DE. Now at this point, if you want to try the problems, just pause the video and work on it and see if you can get the right answer. The best way to learn is by practicing these problems, and then as you begin to do them, the more that you do these problems, the more you understand like what to do next, what reasons to put, and just how to go about to solve like these types of things. So let's begin. So in the first column, let's put statements, and in the second one, reasons. So let's write the given. AB is parallel to DE. So that's given. And let's mark it on a graph. So this is the symbol to indicate that two lines or two segments are parallel. Now, what can we figure out with this information? So knowing that AB is parallel to DE, what can we deduce? Whenever you have parallel lines, look for alternate interior angles. So we could say that angle A is congruent to angle E. You could also say that angle B is congruent to angle D, but we'll take it one step at a time. So let's say that angle A is congruent to angle E. Now what reason can we put? So here's what it needs to say. Alternate interior angles are congruent. So that's the reason. Now, next, let's write that BD bisects segment AE. So this is BD, and it splits AE into two equal parts, which means that AC is equal to CE. And for statement 3, that's simply a given. But for statement 4, we could say that AC is congruent to CE. And a reason, definition of a segment bisector. Now number 5. We could say that these two angles are congruent because they represent vertical angles. So we're going to say that angle ACB is congruent to angle ECD. So notice that D corresponds to B. They're opposite to two congruent sides. So I have to make sure that B matches with D. And the reason? Vertical angles are congruent. Now let's move on to statement 6. So we can now prove that the two triangles are congruent by the angle side angle postulate. So triangle ACB is congruent to triangle ECD. And so the reason for that is the side angle side postulate. And first we had angle 2, which corresponds to statement 2, which corresponds to that angle. Angle A equals angle E. Next, we prove that the sides were congruent. So AC is equal to CE, so that's statement 4. And then the vertical angles are congruent, which was based on statement 5. So now we can make the final statement that segment AB is congruent to segment DE using CPCTC.